Assalamu alaikum. يسعد مساءكم جميعا and welcome to our today's workshop, which is going to be about common mistakes in grammar and punctuation, presented by Ms. Thikra Alzahrani. This is one of the most important topic, one of the most important workshop in our series, because we all need this kind of workshop. We all have grammatical mistakes. We all have some punctuation mistakes. So please, Ms. Thikra, you can start now.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bassem, for your introduction. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining this workshop, which its title is Common Mistakes in Grammar and Punctuation. Of course, such a topic cannot be covered in one workshop, but I will do my best to present the most common mistakes that we usually find on our students' papers. But before I start my workshop, I would like to show you a video that was done in Italian University. And that video introduces a perspective on the typical problems that doctoral students find while writing a paper or an essay. Okay, it is only a short video. It's about a minute or a minute and a half. Are you ready to watch? Okay, so let's watch. Imagine you're in... How is the sound? Can you hear the sound of the video? Okay, great. Imagine you're in front of your computer ready to write your paper. You're clear about the topic, but think about the writing. Very briefly, what's the thing that causes you the most difficulty when you start to write a paper?
How to start? What's going to be the first word?
It is difficult to start the sentence, find the word to start.
To thinking in English and not in Italian.
Do you make grammar mistakes? And if so, what kind?
I forgot to put the S at the end of the third person verbs, or I invert some word inside the phrase.
There's usually a concordance between subject and verbs.
I confuse the past tenses.
Are you able to choose exactly the right words when you write? What problems do you have?
I don't write the right word, but after reviewing a lot of times my writing, probably I'll try to find the right word.
To put it down on a paper, what they actually intend, that's the most difficult. The choice of the verbs is the most challenging thing.
They use general words instead of using specific word related to the field in which I'm writing.
Which verbs do you use most in your writing?
Research, work, also the to be, to have.
Rely, build on, gather, observe, collect,
describe, investigate, unpack, define, posit.
The word to be, provide.
Okay, let's stop here. So tell me, what do you think? What about you? Do you make grammar mistakes? And what difficulties do you have when you start to write a paper or an essay? Time tense, verb tenses. Okay, spelling mistakes. Run-on sentences. Using passive voice. Okay. Which is normal, right? To have problem in writing in a second language, that is normal because it is our second language and we learn usually from our mistakes. So this is the goal of today's workshop and the other workshops that are provided by the Academic Writing Center to help you to know how you can overcome these problems. So in today's workshop, we are going to address some of these problems like verb tense, the grammatical part, which is about verb tense, subject-verb agreement, parallel structure, and finally articles. And the second part of the workshop, it's about punctuation, specifically comma and colon. I focused on these two because the other punctuation, they will be explained in the upcoming workshop. Okay, before I start, I have a question for you. Why is correct grammar important? Why do you think so? Does grammar really matter? Excellent. To deliver your ideas correctly, to be understandable. Yes, this is the key. Yeah. To understand the sentence. Yes, correct. So correct grammar usage helps to create precision in writing and speaking. Actually, correct grammar makes your writing precise and clear. Also, it helps to ensure clear communication and optimal understanding. Therefore, of course, you have to be at least familiar with the basic grammar rules and develop your academic language. Because of course, grammar can change the meaning. Sometimes we have very advanced English language learners and their English could be 90% fine, but still there are some errors in the writing and speaking. Why do you think so? What are some of the reasons of committing mistakes or errors? Lack of practice. Excellent. Writing fast. Of course, reading helps a lot to improve your writing skills. Okay, so all the reasons that you mentioned are correct, but research indicates that one of the most common reasons is overgeneralization. Do you have an idea what is overgeneralization is? Okay, overgeneralization when the learner applies the same grammatical rule for all events. Okay, for example, let's say that an English language learner just learned that we have to use the article the before nouns, okay, before some nouns. Then that learner starts to use the before each single noun he or she uses, okay, which that is not correct. The overuse of the is not correct. That we call it overgeneralization when you learn a rule and apply it every time, okay? Another example, let's say you learned that you have to add s at the end of the verb after singular subject pronoun, okay? Then you start to add s at the end of every verb you write. That is not correct. That is overgeneralization. So to apply a rule of language too broadly, okay? And the other reason is interference. Interference means the negative impact of the first language, which is normal because English aspects differ from those we have in Arabic. And this is usually, yeah, exactly. It is like repeating grammar every time. I mean, you don't use it appropriately. This is the overgeneralization. However, the interference means the negative impact of the first language. And this happens usually, especially with beginning learners. Okay, why is that? Because when they want to start write or speak in English, what they do usually? What do beginning learners usually do if they want to speak or write in English? Exactly, yes. They think in Arabic, okay? They think in Arabic and start to translate their ideas and thoughts from Arabic to English. And the result is that would affect their production in English. Of course, negative effect, okay? So to avoid all these problems, you have to start to think, to plan your project or your writing essay or whatever in English. Okay, so use English all the time, and to know when is the right time to apply the rule that you learn. Okay, clear? Good. Now, before we start discussing the first issue that we have, which is verb tense, let's talk about verb forms, how you can choose the right or the appropriate verb form. There are 4 ways that can help you to choose the right verb form. What are they? First, time. So when you want to write a verb, you have to ask yourself, when did that action happen? In the present time or in the past time? Okay, in the present or in the past? Once you decide the time, then you have to think of the aspect, okay? The aspect means action's degree of progress or completion. Is the action finished or still ongoing? So if it is finished, is it simple past? Or it is ongoing, is it progressive? Okay, so you have to think of these aspects, present simple or past simple, okay? Perfect or progressive or even perfect progressive. Once you decide the time and the aspect, now you have to think about the voice. What voice are you using, active or passive? To decide that, you have to know your focus. What are you focusing on? On the subject? Okay, what is the most or the main important part in your sentence? Is it the subject or the action, the verb? Okay, is it important for the reader to know who did or who does that action, or to know the action itself? Then after you decide the voice, you have to think of modality. Modality means what is the writer's stance or attitude toward the action? What does that writer want to express? Does he or she want to express possibility, certainty, willingness, obligation, or ability? So to express these meanings, the writer can use modal verbs. Do you know modal verbs? Yeah, so can, could, would, might, may, should, all these models can express any of these meanings. Good? Okay, great. Now let's move to the first issue that we find in our students' papers, which is verb tense. Okay, in academic writing, of course, you have to stay consistent. To stay consistent, what does that mean? That means if you use a particular tense, whether past, present, or future, in the first part of a sentence or paragraph, you have to use it throughout your paragraph or your sentence, okay? So please do not shift between tenses, okay? This is the first thing. The other thing that we know, there are 12 verb tenses in English, right? But here I only mentioned 3 tenses, which are present simple, simple past, and present perfect. Why did I mention only those 3? That's because in academic writing, these 3 tenses are the most common, okay? And the rest are rarely used in academic writing. Of course, before you decide which verb tense you will use, you have to understand and really know the formatting style that you follow, whether APA, MLA, or CMS, because that affects choosing your tense, okay? So that requires a good understanding of the formatting style. So let's start with the first tense we have here, which is present simple. MLA is a formatting style in academic paper. Okay, the present simple is, I know most of you know this information about the present simple, but I will give you just an overview of how you can use present simple. We use the present tense to mention repeated regular actions in the present time period. So for repeated actions, use please present simple. For example, I take the train to the office, okay? And also we use it for facts. You always, when we want to state a fact, we have to use present simple, like the president of the USA lives in the White House, or the sun rises in the east. This is a fact. The sun rises in the east. Yeah, there is a specific workshops about the formatting style. And we can use the present simple for habits, like I get up early every day. I drink coffee every morning. So when you want to talk about your habits, use present simple. Also for things that are always or generally true, like it rains a lot in winter. And for timetable, especially fixed timetable, like the British Museum closes at 5 p.m. or the class starts at 8 a.m. The workshop starts at 8 p.m. Whatever timetable, you have to use the present simple. Good? Okay, now let's see how we can form a sentence in the how can we form a sentence in the present simple tense? In the positive form, we have to start with the subject, verb, and the complement or the object, okay? The verb should be in the base form, verb 1, but we have to add s at the end of the verb if the subject is singular, okay? If the subject is singular or singular pronoun. And we don't need to add s at the end of the verb if the subject is I or any other plural noun or pronoun, okay? And for the negative form, you have to start with the subject and then does not plus verb 1. Does not with singular subject, okay? And do not with I and other plural pronouns or nouns, okay? As you can see here, I didn't use contraction because you cannot use contraction in academic writing. Don't write doesn't or don't. No, please don't use short form of negative in academic paper. You have to use the long and the full form. Does, and then you leave a space, and then not. Okay? Now, tell me, how can we use the present simple in our research or our paper? What are the sections that we can use present simple? What do you think? Excellent. Facts, results. Conclusion, bravo, excellent. So I'm talking here, yeah, about academic papers. So we use the present simple to frame a paper, which means in our introduction and in conclusion. And that's because when we write an introduction, we give background information, which is generally accepted as fact in discipline. Okay, this is one thing. And the other thing, you also need to explain why the research you are writing is important in the field. And to do that, you have to use present simple. Okay, and the main thing in your introduction, you are focusing on what is known about this topic. So for all these kinds of information, we need to use present simple. And the same thing for your conclusion, because you generally state the truth that are drawn by you. Okay, and for that, we have to use present simple. So this is the first one. Also, and here is an example from an introduction. Genomics provide crucial information for national drug design. Yeah, again, as I said, it depends on the formatting style. This is the first thing. The second thing, if you are mentioning, okay, it depends on your purpose. If you are mentioning a past study and you don't think that the result of that study is still true today, in this case, you have to use simple past. Okay, Yarab? Now, the other case, to refer to general facts, as we said, and or interpretation about previous studies. So when we interpret or explain previous studies, especially without mentioning the researcher in the writing, we have to use present simple. Like in this example, job satisfaction is the most extensively studied variable in organizational behavior research. The third point about of how to use present simple when you show your agreement with general results of previous research. Okay, so when you give your opinion on another research or mentioning other researchers' results or conclusions or discussions, you have to use present simple. And some verbs that you can use here, like here in the example we have shows, and you can also use claims, states, argues, okay? These are common verbs that can be used in the academic paper to show your opinion. Also, to explain diagrams and figures. Whenever you have to write about a diagram, figure, table, chart in your paper, you have to use present simple. Like in this example here, it says, figure 1 displays, present simple, the comparative variation in the morphology of donor chromatin in both age groups of oocytes. Good. Okay, everything is good till now? Great. Now let's move to the second tense. The past tense. Of course, we all know that the past tense is used to talk about something that started and finished in definite time in the past, okay? So here is the keyword, definite time, and this is differentiates the past simple from the present perfect, that specific time. The past simple is usually required after any past time maker, such as dates in 1997, previously, at that time, in 19th century, in 90s, in 70s, whatever past time maker. When you use any past time maker, you have to use past simple. How do we form a sentence in the past simple? We have to start with the subject and verb to, the second form of the verb, okay? When you have to add d or ed or ied at the end of the verb, and here in the simple past, it doesn't matter if the subject is singular or plural because the verb stays the same. But you have to be careful when you write the second form because we have a lot of irregular verbs in English. And for the negative form, same as present simple. Please do not use contraction and write the long form, subject, and then did not, and the verb should be in the base form, verb 1. Like here, we don't have ed, okay, because we already wrote did. Okay, now, where can we use past simple in our paper? Excellent. It can be used in literature review, right? Bravo. Citing other works. Bravo. Method. So, the past simple tense is used for two main functions in most academic fields. One, to introduce a specific study usually completed by a named researcher, okay, unlike the present simple. Okay, the studies were mentioned without the name of the researcher, but here the name is mentioned, okay? Probably the most commonly discussed phenomenon is in music is the Mozart effect. Here is the general claim and we use simple present. And to support that general claim, we gave specific example, which is Rocher and colleagues first documented the effect in their 1993 Nature paper. Okay, this is the first part where you can use past simple. The second one, to describe the method and data of completed experiment. So in your method, you have to use simple past. And as you can see here in the example, the passive voice is used. So it is okay to use passive voice in the method to give you writing a little more variation and to make it easier for the reader to understand. So these are the two main functions for simple past. Third tense, present perfect. Present perfect usually used to express a past event that has present consequences. So the result of that action is still true today. And forming a sentence in the present perfect here, as you can see, the verb is consistent of two parts, has or had, depends on the subject, and verb 3, okay, and verb 3. Also, you have to be careful with the verb form because of the irregular forms. Here, the example says, she has been to Dubai. Been is irregular form of the verb go. And if the subject is I would use have. So has is used with singular subject pronoun like she, he, or it, and have with I and the other pronouns. Okay, how to use the present perfect tense in your academic paper. Actually, we use the present perfect, okay, to introduce a new topic. Let's say in your abstract, okay? For example, your first statement or your first sentence in your abstract can be written in the present perfect. Why? Because you are trying to explain what has been done in the field about your topic. Like in this example here, there has been a large body of research regarding, and then you mention the topic. Okay, and the other use to summarize previous researches. Some studies have shown that girls have significantly higher fears than boys after trauma. And here, as you can see, the passive voice is also used. And when you use the present perfect, you want the reader to understand and you imply that the result of that research is still true and relevant today. Okay? And to indicate connection between past and the present, as you can read here in the example, while these measures have proved to be reliable and valid predictors, there is present tense, there is little data on how they relate to each other. Okay, also, you can use the present perfect to tell the history of an idea, describe the result of a research, or draw a conclusion. So to describe previous findings without referring directly to the original paper, you can use present perfect, but of course, you should provide the citation in parentheses, okay, to explain what has been done in the field or to explain the source of the idea, how this idea came out, you can use present perfect. Now, after I explained the different uses of present perfect in academic paper, it is your turn. So let's see how you perform. So complete the gap with either present simple, past simple, or present perfect and tense. So here we have 4 points. Choose the appropriate verb tense for each one. Okay, let's see the answers together. Yeah, I changed the slide by mistake. Okay, let's see the answers together. Of course, the first one should be simple past. Actually, we have simple past time maker, okay, in the early 20th century. And here, it should be simple present because we are talking about something that is known, okay, and common. And for 3, we have over the last 40 years. So we are talking about recency. And 4, we conducted, because we are, this part is apparently, it is from the method section, and we are talking about method and data. Okay, so led, simple past, scholars, share, and the engineering is, and here present perfect has grown, and finally conducted a secondary data analysis. Okay, and this, by doing this exercise, we are done with the first problem that is common among students, which is verb tense. Now let's move to the second part of our workshop, which is the agreement between the subject and the verb. Okay, subject-verb agreement simply means both should be agreed together. So if the subject and the verb, if the subject is singular, the verb has to be singular too. And if the verb is, if the subject is plural, the verb also has to be plural. So English verbs agree in number, singular or plural, in the present simple, present perfect, and all progressive and passive forms. For example, she writes every day. We have here writes because singular subject. They write every day. Okay, plural subject, so plural verb. When the subject and verb are separated, the verb always agrees with the head noun, okay? When the subject and verb are separated, like in the example here, after World War II, the rapid advancement of military and space technology was deemed crucial to countering the Soviet threat. Where is the subject here? Advancement. And where is the, or what is the verb here? Was. So, and there are 2 nouns, okay, between the subject and the verb. However, the verb agrees with the main noun or the head noun, which is advancement. Indefinite pronouns are always singular, like someone, or somebody, something, sometime, anyone, anybody, anything, anytime, everyone, everybody, everything, every time, and same thing for no one, nobody, no, nothing, no time. For all these, okay, we have to use singular verbs, and with other pronouns like all, both, some, few, most, and many, we have to use plural verb. I will offer a $5 gift card to everybody who participates in the study. When the subject is clause, the verb is singular. What does this mean in practice? This is the clause. Is that MTCT must be combated at multiple stages of pregnancy and birth. Okay, so here the subject is the whole clause. What this means in practice is a compound subject joined with and is plural. Okay, so here we have compound subject, Mr. Madison and the students. The two noun phrases are joined with the word and. In this case, the verb should be plural, are. When the subject are joined by or neither nor, the verb agrees with the subject that is closest to the verb. The student or the committee members write every day. Here we have two noun phrases and they are joined with or, and the closest one to the verb, which is committee members, is plural. In this case, we have to use plural verb, and here we have used plural verb, which is right. However, in the second example, the committee members, we started with the plural, or the student, singular, writes, because the closest subject or the closest noun to the verb is singular, so we used singular verb, which is right. Okay? When using the clause structure there plus verb be, the verb agrees with the complement. The complement, the noun that comes after verb be. And this is very common in academic writing. There is no effect on the trade balance overall. Okay, here the effect is singular. That's why we used is. However, in the second example, there are three ways cities commonly maintaining strong economic sustainability. Ways is plural, complement, that's why we used the verb are. Okay, after I explained the subject-verb agreement, now your turn to choose the correct form of the verb to complete the sentence. Can you see the questions? Okay. Let's look at the answers. Here we choose plural verb, were. Why? Why do you think so that we chose were? Because the head noun, which is interviewers, excellent. The last speech characteristic the researchers examined for the study was because the last speech characteristic. Okay, singular. The researchers plan to compare the speech of the most and the least successful interviewers to show how content of conversation as well as measures of speech quality is excellent because of plan. Too much pitch variation sound or sounds artificial, we chose sounds because bravo, variation. Now let's move to the third problem we have in our workshop, which is parallel structure. So parallel structure or parallelism looks like this. Okay, what does that mean? That means parallelism is the repetition of the chosen grammatical form within a sentence. Okay, the repetition of a chosen grammatical form within a sentence. Which means if the first apple is an adjective, that means the other two apples should be adjective too. Or if it is adverb, the same thing for the other two. Okay, or if this poem is noun, the other two should be noun too. Let's see. A principle of good style in written English is that lists of two or more items should be grammatically parallel. Grammatically parallel means the same grammatical form. Use the same type of word, phrase, or clause for both or all items in the list that is connected with a coordinating conjunction or correlative conjunction. You know coordinating conjunction and correlative conjunction, right? The coordinating conjunction, fanboys, yes. Fanboys for, but, and, so, yet, and either for the correlative, either or, neither nor, as, etc. Okay, let's read those examples. The first one, a prisoner of war entitled to food, shelter, and medical care. Here we have three nouns. Students need to change from one group to another quickly, safely, and quietly. Three adverbs. Inequality refers to failure to avoid or overcome inequalities. Here we have two plus infinitive verbs. So all these sentences are grammatically parallel. Now let's apply. Now you know that when you have repetition of, when you have a series in your sentence, you have to choose the same grammatical form within the same sentence. So now I want you to find and correct the errors in parallel structure in these sentences. Excellent. Excellent. Good. So some of you did it right. Great, yeah. Okay, so let's see the answers together. People who have a sense of purpose in their life tend to make healthier lifestyle choices and report feeling better about their health. Study participants were not only surveyed passive voice, so children, but also contacted as adults. Participants rated how often they engaged in physical exercise such as running, jogging, and playing basketball. Correct, because we used gerund in the previous in the two previous words. Participants' sense of purpose was positively associated with their reports of physical activity, good nutrition, and good sleep. Good. Now let's move to the last section about grammar, articles. Before I start talking about articles, I want you to know something. Using articles is not that simple system. Actually, using article correctly in English is a skill that is developed over time through lots of reading and writing. So because I don't have time to explain all the rules of using articles, I will do my best to give you the idea of this system. First, what is the article, or what are articles? Articles are the words that define a noun as specific or unspecific, okay? And articles in English, we have those three are the most common ones, the, and an. So these are the most common determiners. And in academic writing, even that is more common than the other two, or an. Their function is their function, those three articles, in a noun phrase to determine or specify whether the head noun is general or specific in its reference. Okay, general or specific in its reference. Reference the noun that followed the articles. Types of references. We have generic reference, indefinite reference, and definite reference. Okay, and let's start with the first one, which is generic reference. Generic reference, when we use generic reference, that means we are not talking about single or individual, no, we talk about category or class or group. So noun that describe a category or a type, okay? And generic reference can often be seen in general statements and used to introduce, define, or summarize an idea. Okay, so we use that generic reference to state general statements, to make generalization, okay? And to do that, we have three options. The first one, whether we don't use an article or use the or a or an. When do we use each one? It depends on the noun, okay? Let's see how. First, when we use generic reference, we mean all of them or everywhere, all members of that category everywhere, every time, okay? And we don't use any article before plural nouns and non-countable nouns, okay? We don't use any article before plural nouns and uncountable nouns. Remember, now I'm talking about generic reference, okay? When I want to make general statement. Let's see the example here. The process can be intensely demoralizing both for students and teachers. Here I'm making generalization, all students and all teachers. And with uncountable nouns, like the development of testable hypothesis is a key characteristic of good science. Science is uncountable noun. That's why we don't use an article before science. Now let's move to the second article, which is the, or second option, using the. We use the, and this form specifically, the plus singular noun, to mainly in scientific and technical writing. Why? Because we want to generalize about a class or a category of inventions, instruments, and so we use the mostly in scientific and in scientific and technical papers because we are talking about these topics, okay? Like in the example here, the basic structure of the brain is affected by some of the adolescent's experience with or her environment, okay? And when we talk about simple inanimate objects like books, for example, cars or whatever, we don't use this form, the plus singular noun. No, we use plural form, books, cars. And third option, which is use the article a or an, depends on the noun. If it starts with a vowel sound, we use an, and if it starts with consonant sound, we use a. We use it when we talk about singular, okay, singular noun that represent the whole category or the whole group. Like in the example here, a portfolio is a file containing samples of child's work. Here I'm using singular noun, which is portfolio, represent the whole group, which is, what is the category we have here in this sentence? Portfolio, what does it represent? Which category? It is mentioned in the sentence. File, excellent, because all portfolios are files, and this form is used normally for definitions, okay? When we want to define or write a definition, we use this form, article a or an plus singular noun. Another example, we can say, you mean a second mention? Yeah, Bender, you are talking about the definite article, which is the in the second mention. That's correct, yeah. But here I'm talking about generalization. I am making a general statement, okay? So we use that that form or an plus singular to make generalization. Like if I say a dog, okay, a dog is a domestic animal. Here I'm generalizing all dogs are domestic animals. The category is domestic animals, okay? Done with the generic reference. Now let's move to the second type, which is indefinite reference. And here we mean singular, one or some of many, okay? And when do we use the indefinite reference? When is it appropriate to use the indefinite reference? We use it when the identity of the reference is not known. And that might be because it is not important, not known to the writer, or new to the reader. Let's read the examples here. We have two options to use for indefinite reference, whether we don't use any article or use a or an. We don't use any articles with plural nouns and uncountable nouns. Yeah, for unknown, because we don't care about the identity of the reference, so we don't have to use, we use these articles a or an or nothing for plural or uncountable noun. Like we need volunteers to help with community events. I don't care which volunteers, I just need volunteers, okay? Here is plural. And in the second example, which is singular countable noun, in a review of empirical research, comparing ESL writers and native speakers of English. Here, the reader doesn't know which review the writer is writing about. He just mentioned there is a review of empirical research, okay? Because it is not important who did that review. Now, definite reference. And the easiest one, the definite reference, is used when the reader and the writer both can identify the exact noun that is being referred to. And here in this case, we use the for all cases, whether uncountable noun, plural, or singular, okay? We use the for all three types of nouns, uncountable nouns, plural, or singular. Let's read the first example. Step 2, mix the water with the boric acid. Mix the water with the boric acid, because here it is known that which water they are talking about in the experiment. And plural, the projects described in your proposal will be fully funded. Here it is known which projects, the one that you mentioned in your proposal. The ones that you mentioned in your proposal. And singular, bring the umbrella in my closet. Here I'm talking about specific umbrella and the listener knows which umbrella. Clear? Okay. And a noun can be definite if, first, it has been previously identified in the text, as Bender says, if it is second mention. The result of the experiment confirmed the effect of the second-hand smoke. It's apparently that experiment has been mentioned in the research before. And if it is unique, a large negative impact on the environment. We have only one environment. Another example can be the earth rotates around the sun. The earth, we have only one earth and we have only one sun. So they are unique. They are unique. Sorry. The noun phrase includes a superlative adjective. The biggest problem is the lack or waste of money. Always with superlative form, we use the article the and we add est to the adjective. And the noun is part of whole group. The agricultural sector accounts for about 1/4 of the country's gross domestic product, 2/5 of the country's export, and half of the labor force. We are expressing here part of whole group. Now it is your turn. I did my part. Now it is your turn to do this activity. Fill in the blanks with the correct article. Or it might, the sentence doesn't need any article. Don't need any article. Excellent. Right, Bender, that's correct. The first can be without any article. Okay, let's see the answers together. The first one, the presence of ESL students, plural, okay? Plural, we don't use any article, should be an important consideration and one of many, okay, for all teachers and scholars for writing because ESL students can be found in many writing courses across the United States. 2, no article because temperature is uncountable noun. Okay, temperature is measured in degrees. 3, the computer. Do you remember when I said when we talk about inventions, we use the article the, especially in scientific and technical writing? 4, volcanoes are formed by pressure under the Earth's surface. Okay, general statement, and we don't use an article because it is written in plural form. Participants were asked to choose a pen. Here we don't know the identity and we don't care which pen, just choose a pen, okay? Clear? Good. Now by doing this activity, we are done with the grammar part of today's workshop. Now let's move to the last part, which is punctuation. Comma. When do we use comma in our writing? A comma is used in the following situation. First, to separate items in series. He lost his house, his heritage, his hair, and his handkerchief. 2, to separate non-essential clause. My uncle, who is 80 years old, walks 3 miles every day. The clause that between commas it is not essential, it is not important. If I remove this part, that wouldn't affect the meaning of the sentence, and it is still correct. My uncle walks 3 miles every day. Okay, the meaning is understandable. And to separate 2 independent clauses in a compound sentence. The student explained her question, yet, here we have comma before yet, the instructor still didn't seem to understand. After an introductory phrase, to stay in shape for a competition, comma, athletes must exercise every day. To get a good grade, comma, you have to study every day. So be after an introductory phrase. Now the second one, which is colon. Use a colon to join 2 independent clauses when you want to emphasize the second clause. The local unemployment rate in Zabokovsky is quite high. Okay, this is the main, this is the information, and I want to emphasize the second part, which is in June, it stood at 20%, which was an improvement on the average figure for the early part of the year, which was 24.9. Use colon after an independent clause when it is followed by series like the lab report consists of 6 sections: introduction, background, engineering theory, experimental setup, procedure, and analysis. Often titles of research articles and reports use this function of colon to give further details explaining the contents of the report. Laser welding induced alignment distortion in butterfly laser module packages. Effect of welding sequence. The slide doesn't change. Is that right for everyone? Okay. And the last point, use a colon to introduce a quotation, okay? Hannes predicts that the effect of climate change will be greater in the developing world. The disease mainly affect, and here's the quotation, the disease mainly affects younger age groups, so the total burden of disease due to climate change appears to be borne mainly by children in developing countries. Okay, and by reading this quotation, I am finishing my presentation or my workshop. So this part was the last part of today's workshop, and you did great actually in the previous task, so you will not have exercise for this one. And this is the list of the references that I used to prepare this presentation. And if you have any question, I will be happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Ms. Thikra, for this wonderful and informative presentation and workshop. We really enjoyed it and we learned a lot from it. And let's now open the floor for questions. Please, if you have any questions or any suggestions or comments, please write in the chat or raise your hand. I will share with you the evaluation form in a moment with you. And please complete it also with YouTube, our YouTube channel. Okay, here are these 2 links. And please don't forget to complete the form. Thank you. And we have a question here from Bender. Go ahead.
Very welcome, Dr. Bassem. Yes.
Hi, Ms. Thikra. Thank you for the presentation first. I would like to ask you about the tenses. We have, I think, 12 tenses. Do you hear me?
Yes, we have 12 tenses in English.
In your recommendation, what the most commonly used tenses used in to be learned?
Actually, it is not my recommendation. It is this is what the research and the study says. The most common tenses used in academic writing or in academic paper are the three tenses that I explained: simple present, present perfect, and past simple. And the basic one is the simple present for all papers. And the other two should be used in specific settings.
I couldn't hear you. Your sound.
Okay, please, once I start answering your question, mute your microphone so you can hear me.
Okay.
Okay, I just said that we have 12 tenses in English, but I mentioned the three tenses that are commonly used in academic paper, okay, which are present simple, present perfect, and simple past. These are the commonly used, and the basic one is the simple present, and the other two should be used in specific sections of your paper. I hope this answers your question.
All right, do you have any other question, Thunder? Okay, we have a question here from Sumaya. What if I want to use Allah, lafz al-jalala, in present simple? Should I use Allah helps or help us?
Allah helps or?
Helps or help, with the third person S or not. Allah helps or help us.
I think it should be helps.
Yeah, this is a question from Sumaya.
Okay.
I'm reading the questions from the chat here. Okay.
Sure. Asma is asking for the reference lines.
Is it important to write in third person form? This is Abdurrahman.
Actually, previously we learned that it is not preferable to use the first pronoun in your academic paper, but recent studies says it is fine to use I in your paper.
We have another question here from Turkey. He asked, is it good to use grammatical or grammar programs like Grammarly and forgot the other ones?
Those kinds of program might help, but sometimes it is difficult to know what you really mean. So don't depend totally on these programs to clearly deliver your idea.
Okay, for Yasmin, please email us so we can help you on this. And let me see if we have any. And we have also a question from Abdurrahman. Is it okay if we use I in paper? Can we use?
Yeah, previously it wasn't preferable to use pronoun I, but recent new studies indicate that it is fine. But still, it depends all on the formatting style he uses.
All right, Yusra said, could you repeat which tense or tenses for each section or academic writing, like introduction and method?
Okay, I said for your introduction and conclusion, you should use present simple. And when you giving your opinion about previous research, especially without mentioning the researcher, you have to use present simple. And the simple past should be used in the method section. And when you talk about previous study in a specific date that supports your general claim. And for the present perfect, you can use it to introduce a new topic or to mention what has been done in the field. This is briefly, and I think you can watch the workshop again, right, Dr. Bassem?
Yes, yes, we'll upload it inshallah tonight to the YouTube channel. So stay tuned with the channel, just subscribe so you can receive notifications of, and also soon inshallah in future we will upload different short videos about different aspects in academic writing. So we have a question also from Bender. How about the usage of semicolon?
Okay, as I mentioned, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the research, at the beginning of the presentation, sorry, I didn't mention all the punctuation because there is upcoming workshop will talk about the semicolon and full stop.
Okay, one more question from, I guess, Asma. Yes, is there any technique that can help an IELTS exam? This is a very general question, but you give us
exactly.
Techniques, just I guess she means general techniques, I guess. Is there any technique that can help an IELTS exam? Think a bit broad question.
IELTS, we have two tasks, I think, task 1 and task 2, and you have to use the academic style, writing style, and you have to follow the essay structure, 5 paragraphs, and yeah, use, it depends on the question itself. So I don't know what you want to know exactly.
All right, we have also another question from Yusuf Alzahrani. Go ahead, Yusuf.
In reporting others' work, for example, reporting results, can I use, or is right to use past simple? Or what is the appropriate tense? Thank you.
As I said in the that part, it depends on you, what you want to deliver to the reader. Do you want to explain what was done? Or do you think the result of that research is still true and relevant today? If you think that the result is relevant to your research and it is important today, so in this case, you have to use the present perfect. Otherwise, if you think, use simple past if you think the result of that research is not correct anymore, or you think it is not valuable today. And again, as I said, you have to follow the formatting style, APA, MLA, or any other formatting style. As I said, using the correct verb tense requires understanding the formatting style.
All right, let's see if we have any other questions or. All right, I think there are no more questions, so thank you. Okay, one more question. What about passive voice? In which part in paper we could use it?
Actually, the direct voice or the active voice is preferable because it is direct and stronger. But you can use the passive voice to give you writing variation in the method section and when you mention previous studies.
All right, so I think we reached the end of the presentation, and thank you, Ms. Thikra, and thank you all for attending this wonderful presentation. And we hope to see you, inshallah, next week. We'll have only one workshop next week, inshallah, on Monday. And because of the National Day, Saudi National Day, we will postpone the workshop that is going to be on next Wednesday. So it's going to be, inshallah, rescheduled later, inshallah. So if you have, okay.
Thank you, Dr. Bassem, and
Thank you, Ms. Thikra. Thank you all for attending this workshop, and enjoy the rest of your night.